Welcome to another episode of Food Beyond Its Nutrition. Yours truly, Dr. Wendy in the house. And yes, as you can see, we are cooking today reversed seared prime rib. Now, this is my foolproof recipe for cooking an expensive cut of meat, prime rib, so that it is juicy, it's succulent, it's moist, it is bursting with flavor. So guys, let's get to it. And here is the star of our show. I have a 4.5 pound prime rib roast here, which I actually got from Sam's Club. Now, you can get this from any grocery store. Sometimes you might have to order it, but you can get it from any grocery store. Sometimes you'll see it in the case, sometimes you won't. I typically ask them to cut me a piece. Okay, if I don't see what I like in there, I ask them to cut me a piece. And it can be bone in, bone out, bone tied. My preference is bone out. People say, bone in, it tastes better. I haven't found that to be so. You need 1/2 to 3/4 pound of cooked prime rib meat per person and or more, but you can talk with your butcher about that. Now, let's take a look. Guys, one of the most important things is the marbling. Your prime rib roast needs to be marbled. For me, it could have had a little bit more marbling. And what I mean by that, fat. It needs fat to be running through the meat. You need a beautiful fat cap. Sometimes they trim off too much of the fat cap, but you need a fat cap. And what all of that does for you is create flavor. It makes the meat juicy. It makes the meat tender. It gives you that iconic, all that marbling, it gives you that iconic prime rib roast taste. Yeah? It's so important. Don't try and trim any of that away. Once again, in this instance, fat is your best friend. Here's some of the equipment and the ingredients that you need. This is a probe thermometer. You will stick this probe into the prime rib. On the actual digital side of the house, you will set the internal temperature that you want the meat to cook to, and it will beep and let you know when it's reached that internal temperature. This piece, you can actually, I stick mine onto my cooker because it's magnetic. You need a rack and a baking tray. If the beef has the ribs on it, you can use that as the rack. You'll need this for the aging process. For the aging process, you're going to need kosher salt, and to create the crust, I'm going to use Italian herbs or Italian seasoning, black pepper, pimento. You can use clarified butter. I'm using high temp avocado oil. Please note that when you do create the crust, you don't need any more salt. And I saw a thing the other day where they were saying, you don't need to rinse your meat off. Yes, you do. I don't care what they say. Yes, you do. Once you've rinsed the beef in cold or very cool running water, you need to pat it dry because we're now going to begin the process of aging and brining or salting the meat. Please leave the trussing on because as it cooks, this will help the meat to keep its wonderful shape when you get ready to carve it. Patting it completely dry is very important because you do not want any water on the surface of your prime rib to dilute the salt. So here it's patted dry, and if I didn't say this before, I'm going to use kosher salt. I use Diamond Crystal kosher salt. Please don't use table salt, like what you use at the table to salt your food. Otherwise, this will come out very, very salty. And look here, because we are liberally brining mat. Look at all that salt on there. And many of you will be like, oh my God, that's too much salt. No, 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 no. What this does is, I want to say it's osmosis, right? Don't quote me, don't know, but I'm thinking it's some sort of osmosis, because the salt liquefies and then it is pulled back into the middle of your prime rib roast. It seasons it, it tenderizes it, it gives it flavor. So here I'm just finishing up. And again, guys, you can see how liberally I'm salting this, because some of this I was going to edit. But my brain said to me, don't do that, so people can really see how much salt you are putting onto the prime rib. And the other thing is, when you actually go to make the crust at the end, you don't need any more salt. Between me and you, there's more than enough. Now here I've actually placed the prime rib on the rack, and it is on a rack so air can circulate all around it. We are aging or false aging and drying this meat. And in order to do that, the air needs to circulate all around it. Once again, the salt, it actually creates water. And I'll show you on the surface of the beef. And then it's literally pulled back into the center of the beef. And once again, this is where the flavor comes from, with the marbling, with the salt. This is, it's like magic. It works like magic for me. So I'm going to put this in the refrigerator, uncovered, guys, uncovered, for two days, for 48 hours. All salt isn't equal, and I have a blog about this on my website. This is fine table salt, and this is what you do not want to use, guys. You need to use crystal, diamond crystal salt, or kosher salt, or coarse kosher salt, because the actual granules are bigger. Yeah. If you do need to use table salt, you need to use 3/4 less. Otherwise, the meat will be too salty. Okay, guys, this is what the prime rib looks like an hour after it has been in the refrigerator. You can definitely still see some of the salt crystals, but a lot of them have already seemingly melted into the actual meat, where once again it will draw moisture. I think it's osmosis. I think that's the process. It will draw moisture out, and then it's going to soak back into the meat, where it actually tenderizes it. The dry brine, which is what we did, a dry brine with the salt, it seasons it, and it really creates this dynamic flavor within the meat. Okay, guys, this is 24 hours in, and as you can see, if you look towards the top of the prime rib, you can see where it's really started to dry out. Yeah, even if you look at the fat cap, you can see how it's starting to dry it out. It's starting to age it. And guys, this is exactly what you are looking for. Look at the back here, how it started to look really like it's got freezer burn. Okay, guys, this is day 2. This is 48 hours in, and this prime rib roast looks like who did it, what for, when, and why. Yeah, and for me, this is what you're looking for. You want the meat to be dried out. Look at that. It truly does look like it got freezer burn. The fat cap looks a little dried and rolled up. The meat has changed in color and has changed in texture. But once again, this is what you are looking for. Some of the salt, of course, didn't make its way into the meat, especially on the fat cap. But this is going to be excellent for when you go ahead and you roast it. So once again, this is 48 hours in, and I wanted you to see this because this is what you are looking for. Another important factor in cooking your rib roast is to bring your meat up to room temperature. I cannot even stress that. This is one of the methods that creates a foolproof prime rib roasting experience. Here I have actually put the probe into the center of the prime rib, and I'm going to actually set the time that I want. So I'm going to set it to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Right now you can see on the left of the screen, the internal temperature of the rib roast is 64 degrees Fahrenheit. I took this out of the oven, out of the refrigerator, and left it on the counter basically overnight. The salt, it was cool enough in here, and the salt will protect it. God knows there's enough salt to act as a preservative. Once the internal temperature has arrived, your probe will beep and your meat will look like this. I've just taken this out of the oven and take a look at the probe. It beeped at 129. Right now I've taken it out of the oven, right? And the internal temperature has already begun to rise to 131 degrees. What I didn't show, guys, is that I tented this with foil very loosely. It wasn't wrapped. I just tented this with foil, covered it with foil, and left it on the counter for approximately 2 hours. Here I mixed up my Italian herbs or Italian seasoning with black pepper, my pimento berries, crushed pimento berries, and I put some garlic powder in. You do not need any salt. Repeat after me. I do not need any more salt. You need a high temperature oil. I'm using avocado oil. You can definitely use clarified butter. What you don't need is something like, for me, butter or olive oil. Anything that doesn't do well at a high temperature or doesn't have a high temperature smoke point. So again, clarified butter, avocado oil, and some of the other vegetable oils out there. Now, I am basting this liberally all over. Watch this. I'm going to upend my little container all over it. I'm going to put it in the oven, 500 degrees for 15 minutes. And hey, guys, this is what your prime rib roast will look like when it's done. And guys, not only did it look absolutely gorgeous, it smelled gorgeous too. Now, you can cut this straight away, but I elected to tent it over because I was actually going to do some potatoes, double baked potatoes. So that gave me time to do that. So if you need to do other things, you can definitely tent it, leave it on the counter. It will remain hot. Let me tell you this. Now, I cooked my meat to 130 degrees. It actually went up by about 7 degrees, which was fine. That works well for my family. They don't like medium. They don't like rare or medium rare. So that works really well. The name of the game for me, though, is to cook it at a medium to medium well, so everybody can have what they like, especially knowing my family. Everybody can have what they like. And also what I do is I will pan sear in a grill on the stove. I'll pan sear the meat so that it can be done, or for the doneness of what everybody likes. And yeah, guys, this is your prime rib. It's foolproof. It's delicious. I love it. And here's what it looks like when I seared it in a pan. So guys, subscribe, like, and you find this recipe on my website.